Good morning everybody, welcome to today's video. So today is going to be a real good one. We are going to try and see how many different black surfaces we can achieve before applying colored pencils, because the idea is to get a really black surface because we want to utilize the negative space for the peacock feathers, for example. So I thought this would be a good opportunity that before we start drawing the peacock feathers, we find a way to get a very black background, because when we drew the jellyfish, a number of us had a lot of trouble with getting the background as dark as what we would like and getting the bright contrast of the pinks over the top of it to show up. So the idea is to get a very black background but still also achieve the bright contrast of color over the top of the black background. Now, I wonder if you guys need more lighting over here. Can you see enough? Okay. So that mustn't go there. So who we have? Hey Maureen, hey Luella, hey Sandra, Alex, welcome. Hey Tracy, Majin, Barb, Christy. Nice to see you guys on here. Okay, so I have some UArt 400 paper that I haven't tried before, and the box looks like this. Got a lot of stuff here, or the pad looks like this. So it comes in a folder like this. This is the 9 by 12 inches. I got 10 sheets, and this is the 400 grade. So the 400 grade, it has more of a texture than the 800 grade. I think the 800 is smooth, the 400 is a lot more sanded. So this is premium sanded pastel paper, and it feels a lot like the Fisher 400 paper actually. It's so similar that I almost feel like it's not that much different. Let me go grab a piece of the Fisher 400 paper so that we can have a look and see. I have a tiny strip of the Fisher 400 paper, and they are so similar. I think the UArt 400, I don't know, there's a slight different feeling in the texture. It's hard to tell, but they both seem to feel exactly the same. So this is the UArt 400 paper, and this is the Fisher 400 art paper. And I'd say that you could probably use both of them the exact same way, whatever you can get your hands on. Now, I have used the Fisher 400 paper before, and I love it. This paper is amazing. I really like this paper. Some of you may remember that the butterfly that I did an airbrush background with a butterfly, and then I did the butterfly in colored pencils. One of the students, Lundy, she's the one that took that photo, but this is a paper that we used, and it was great. And that was actually the first time that I tried a bit of the brush and pencil powder blender, but I didn't like it as much. But yes, so this paper, the Fisher 400 and the UArt 400 paper, seem to feel pretty much the same. So we're going to experiment on this paper with black. So I'm going to put black ink on one section, and I'm going to put black acrylic paint on one section. So I have this paint. It's just black Nero paint. I also have the Chromacryl, and I thought I had some of the Derivan Matisse black, but I have a very, very dark purple in that color. It's not black, so I think either will work. And then I'm also going to use some ink. So this is actually black ink from my Airbrush inks. It's a water-based ink. It's very, very watery. So we'll try some black ink on a section as well to see how that would work. So the other piece of paper that we're going to apply the black ink and the black acrylic paint and a black pan pastel is the Meton's text paper. So if you've got the text or the touch paper, it doesn't matter. Both of them are the same. So we will divide this into 4 sections and do the same thing there. And then I want to show you guys something, and I think that I probably am going to pick this one, just looking at it. So this is regular black drawing paper. Now, I need to see if I can get the contrast of this video right, because, well, what you guys are seeing is pretty, I don't know, it seems pretty black in the video. But I wonder if you can see how black this one is. Yes, you can. So this is the Reeves black drawing paper, which comes in a pad that looks like this. Oh my gosh, I need more space. Okay, here. So the Reeves black drawing paper, it's just a black sketch pad. A3, nothing fancy. But this, it's got no tooth, it's very smooth, but it's not completely black. It's like a gray black. But this is the Meton's text black paper, and it is super, super, super black. It's amazing how black this is. Look, it just looks like a hole. It's very, very black, and I'll probably end up just using this. So you can see the difference in black. So this one on the left is just a black drawing paper, and this one on the right is the Meton's text black paper. Now I already know I love the Meton's sanded papers, and I already know that I really don't like the regular drawing black Reeves paper. So this is probably going to be what we're going to use, but we'll test other surfaces anyways. What I'll use anyways on the Peacock drawing. So let's start off with, maybe I can put both of these next to each other. I can. So we've got the UArt 400 paper and the Meton's text sanded paper, which is, it's not quite white, but it's almost white. So let's tape these down. Let me see if you guys have any questions. So Maureen said the left one looks similar to the acrylic ivory or bone black. Is that the Reeves one? Okay, let's... tape that there. Let's take this one and put it there. So I am wasting Very, very expensive, nice paper. But we have to find the answers to our questions. It has to be done. And I'm not wasting it. You shouldn't see it that way. You should see it as experimenting in order to learn. Haha, yes, Maureen, it is. So Maureen says, the Meton's text black paper is out of this world dark. It is. It's so dark. It is so black, which is amazing. That's the kind of blackness we want to achieve. So it'll be interesting to see, since we already have something that's really, really black, to compare whether or not we could make that kind of black with the different things that we're going to try. This drawing board of mine, I've barely used it and it already looks like it's 20 years old with wear and tear. It's good. It shows that I work. Okay, so we want to try, I'm just going to pick one of these blacks. This black doesn't look that black. It almost looks blue, so I'm not going to use this black. Okay, so the black paint that we'll be using will be just acrylic black paint, which it looks very, very black. It looks more black than the other one. This one is a chrome acrylic black, which I thought of using, but it actually looks blue, not black. So this one looks black. So this is what we're going to use on one section. And the ink we will use on another section. The pan pastel we'll use on another section. And what else could we use to make it black? Pencil? We'll use a black pencil for the fourth section. So let's divide it into 4 sections. I'll use my tape. Jamie says, Shaldine, I went down the rabbit hole last night following YouTube links on Conversations with Nostradamus. I would love to know what you think, but maybe you could message me instead of putting it on the chat, because it's quite a controversial subject, so we don't want to have that on the chat. Majin would find that interesting as well. We are not doomed. You're seeing it in the wrong light. Ah, that's funny. Okay. Here we go. We've got our little barriers. They're not perfectly sized, but they'll do the trick. Okie dokie, let's start with, the black acrylic paint. I'm literally just gonna blob it on there and mix it with a brush. I'm not even gonna, because there's no mixing or anything required. I'm just gonna blend it in with a brush that's falling apart. Because I guess we want to do this first so that it can dry, because we want to draw on it. So Stephanie was the one that experimented with the black paint. I think she said the UArt 400 paper, which she did with the jellyfish, and it looked amazing. So that ended up looking really, really good. So that's why we have decided to go with this. So we'll try it on the UArt 400 paper like she did, and also on the Metans Tex sanded paper, the white one. So that's the acrylic paint, black acrylic paint on Metans Tex paper, sanded paper, and this is the black acrylic paint on, I probably went very thick, but no, it's going. And this side is the UArt 400 paper, so I could probably put that on the screen for you guys. Cool. I have some hairs in there. Get off. There. Okie dokie. Okay, I'm just going to clean that brush. Right, let's see. If I go over here, why is the music not playing? It took me this long to realize that it was so quiet. So add text. So we've got the Metans Tex paper, which is this one here. Let's put it at the bottom. And then we have the UArt 400. Okay, and then we have acrylic. Let's go white, okay. So this one's the acrylic black. Yeah. And then, can I duplicate? Okay, so those two are the acrylic black. And then on the right, we're gonna go with the ink, black ink. water-based. So that'll show up when I wonder if I could just go Control C, Control V. No. I'd be so lucky. Add. Oh my gosh. Ink. Okay. Okay, let's add the ink and then I'll add the titles later. Yes, it is going to be satisfying removing the tape. Definitely. Okay, so I'm gonna pour some of this ink in like a little cap, hopefully not make a mess. So I just have a cap over here. Okay, and then I'm just gonna use the same brush as what I used before and apply the ink. I don't think I shook it enough. I'm supposed to shake it way better than that. Because I know when I airbrush with these inks, we were shown to really shake it properly. Otherwise it almost leaves like a white hazy look on it. So that one's better. Oh, too much, too much, too much! Oh my gosh! That's gonna drip down. Catch it, catch it. It looks really good on the UArt paper. But the Meton's the text paper doesn't seem to want to absorb any of it. Right, let's leave that to dry. I have a hair on there. Where is my etching needle? Yeah. Get off. Okay. So, I don't know if you guys can see it, but this looks black on the screen. But it's turning grey. It's not so black. This one seems pretty black. This one seems very black. This one's okay. So wait for this to dry. Wait for that to dry. So while we wait for that to dry, let's pan pastel these sections here. So I need a pan pastel sponge. Oh, coffee. Yes, the ink that I used was the same one I used for the barn owl. That's right. Okay, black pan pastel for the bottom left. Now we know with pan pastels that you need to seal it with fixative before you can continue with the layering. Because if I just continue to add pan pastel like this, it's going to move around. And it's not going to be as dark as what it could be if I sealed it with a fixative first. It does adhere to the sandpaper a lot better than watercolor paper. So it looks black to you guys. All of them just look equally black. I think this is a pretty difficult video to record to show you exactly what. Okay, the UART 400 paper feels more sanded than the text paper. But I'd say it would be the same as the Fisher 400 paper. And I guess they both say 400 because they both are 400 grit, so it makes sense. This one I feel like I'm definitely going to have to seal it with fixative before I can put in a second layer. Let me see if I can do something different real quick. I'm going to take this. Let me do something here. Almost. Okay, bear with me. I might be able to switch over to the webcam from time to time. I'm wondering if I can't do this while I'm live. That might be the problem. Seems I can't do it while I'm live. Oh no, what did I do? Remove. What happened to my... Okay, I'm gonna stop streaming for a sec because we're back. I may not fiddle with that anymore. You guys are starting to see. Maybe I just zoom in. Okay. So okay, so that one, or those two, so we have the acrylic paint, which seems it's pretty good. It's pretty black. And then we've got the ink, which is mostly dry, so we can see that. that is the side of the sanded piece. That's why there's a line there. So that's going off the paper in a sense. And then down here, this is hard. I'll try and take this off. Just take this off. Okay. There we go. So this one here is the acrylic paint on the Meton's text paper. This one is the black ink on the Meton's text paper. This one is the pan pastel. So maybe if I go really close, you can see. And then this one's still drying, so this is the UArt black. And the ink has dried, but it seems to have, maybe I have to add another layer, but it's gone completely light. So here's a view of both of them next to each other. This one's pretty reflective because it's still wet. But look how black that is compared to these two. So these two have turned into like a matte black. And then the pan pastel black has also turned into like a matte black. So I'd say the pan pastel black is pretty much very close to being the same as these two. And then again, this one with the pan pastel, I need to add another layer. Okay. Well, there we go. Now that it's drying, you're seeing it a bit better. Okay, here we go. So I'm gonna set this back to default. There! Oh no, why is my hand so white? Okay, apply. Okay. Okay. Something seems weird now. What did I do? I just want you guys to see the real thing. So let's default that one. Okay. A little better. Okay, I think we've got it. Now my hand looks pink on there. Whatever. You can see the blackness. So here's the Meton's text black paper that we can compare to. So we can see neither of them compare. The UArt one with the acrylic black seems to be the closest. It's not dulling too much, but it is still drying. So the acrylic black paint compared to the Meton's text black paper is still too much of a matte black. So this is the issue that we had with the jellyfish. It looked too like charcoal. It didn't look black once it dried. It looked like a charcoal matte black. The same with this one. It's also not as black. This one seems to be the best. This one, the ink doesn't seem to adhere to the paper at all. It's weird. So I might have to either add another layer or just come to terms with the fact that the ink's not going to work on here. The pan pastel black's not too bad, but it is still a very charcoaly sort of matte color. And this just needs another layer with the pan pastel. So far the best one that we have is the acrylic black paint on the UArt 400 paper. That's it. And now we're going to add a black pencil. So, I don't know. Let's use a Prismacolor black, I guess. Okay, a Prismacolor black pencil. Luella says, I've never sealed my pastels. Really? I find that you can't layer as much without sealing them. Between layers. I don't know, I feel like the pigment of the color enhances the more you seal them with a workable fixative and then continue with your layering that way. But that's my personal opinion. I think you've been using pastels longer than me, so it's up to you what you decide to do. Jamie's asking, do you need to seal acrylic paints or inks before using them, using pencil on them? See, Stephanie didn't seal hers before she used pencil. So, I'm not sure. I think I would naturally do that. But, I don't know, maybe we don't have to. We will maybe seal half of the top sections of each piece and not the bottom, and then we will color it in or add color over the top and see what happens. So colored pencil layer is obviously going to take the longest. Heather. So I don't know how many of you have actually seen Heather's channels. She does craft work and it's beautiful. I really like what she does, the cards and stuff that she makes. So we are working on figuring out what we want to do, and we'll do a live hangout together where maybe Heather can teach me how to create a pretty card. I really like the hangouts where other artists teach me something new. I think that's quite fun. So you can get way more even coverage of pencil on the UArt 400 paper than on this one. I feel like the UArt 400 paper eats through your pencils even more than the text does. I think I just sharpened that like twice the amount. I've used solvent on the UArt 400 paper before, so that's going to be an interesting little experiment. So I'm just going to use a big brush and blend it in. Way too much solvent. Okay, that's pretty black. But still, it dries to like a matte color, which is not what I want. I want it to be black. Because when it dries to a matte color, it makes it look like charcoal, not black. So let's see how this works on this paper. This is the first time I'm trying solvent on the UART 400 paper, but it seems to be the same kind of thing. I feel like the UART paper sort of grips my brush. It's like it's very much, it's a very different sanded surface to the Meton's text paper, text or touch. I don't feel like I can get it as smooth. Like I can't get my brush strokes to disappear like I could here. I can't get my brush strokes to disappear on that one. Okay. Let's add another layer of pan pastel over here. I think I have to seal it. So this is not going to take another layer unless I seal it, because you're just going to see that sort of yellow tinge of the paper come through. I'm gonna do this for you guys. I don't know why I didn't do it earlier. So this paper is the, it's not gonna work. I always spell this wrong. It's E-I, not I-E. Just so you know. So that's what this paper is here. And then this paper is the UART 400. And then this is the acrylic acrylic black. This is ink. Acrylic. That's a C, not a K. Ink. It's not easy writing sideways like this. Ink. And we got pan pastel. Pencil. Pan pastel. Pencil. I know it's not very neat, I'm sorry. I love hearing your experiences with trying new things. With everything it's progress, it takes time. Hey Diane. Okay. So that's what we've got there. Now, this is dry. This is dry. That's not dry yet. You can see that's still very wet. But this one seems to be the most black out of all of them. Is the acrylic, the black acrylic paint on the UART 400 paper is the most black. The rest of them still change to like a matte black. And in comparison with what you can get on the Meton's text black paper, none of them are as black as this paper. They all have that hue. This is the closest to being the darkest, is the acrylic paint on the UART 400 paper. This will need a couple of layers, but even if I layer this properly, I'm sure it's still going to end up looking like this. And then this needs to dry still. And then ink on the UART 400 paper just does not work at all. So those were very good experiments. So we'll wait for that to dry. And then I'm going to find a way. So I'm going to put fixative, workable fixative on the top half of each section. And then not the bottom half. And then we're going to compare what it will be like to apply our colored pencils over the top of each of those sections. Thank you, Heather and Maureen. Sandra says, I tried to make part of a grey surface white and I used oil pastels. Haven't been able to use my pencils on it. They slip off. Any idea on making it workable? I've tried zested. Honey, is that you? You're gonna make noise now. I don't see how you could use pencils on top of oil pastels. So oil pastels, it's very thick and creamy, and when you're applying oil pastels onto a surface, it's like you're applying really thick chunks of oil. So when you try and apply the pencil over the top, it's not gonna stick. So I don't even think it will work if you used fixative over the top, workable fixative over the top of your oil pastels. Pencils are not going to work on the top of that. So you need chalk pastels or pan pastels to be able to apply pencils over the top. Oil pastels are not going to work, unfortunately. I don't see how they could work. I could try and do a test sometime, but I don't think it would work. Okie dokie. So let's spray the top half. And then I can remove this ugly tape and replace it with a newer tape. Hello, Prissy. We'll just try the Mikador Workable Matte Fixative. Or should I try the Textured Fixative? This one, okay. We'll leave the texture because we're using sanded paper, so we're not worried about applying more texture. So we'll just apply a regular workable fixative. And I need to somehow protect okay, so let's spray the top half. I'm going to cover that so I can spray that. And I'd also rather use this fixative inside because this one's okay, it's very light. Whereas the textured fixative, it just, you can just see it freaking spray everywhere. Okay. So you can see how wet I'm getting it. So that's all you need. I may have sprayed a bit too much over there. And then let's spray the top half of these ones. Okay. So you can sort of see where I sprayed. When it dries, you shouldn't see much of a difference. Just open a window. Spray too much there, it's drooling down. Okay, so while we wait for that to dry, let's remove this. So that one made a nice mess. Okay, so time for some clean tape. Hopefully I don't dirty it with my hands. I hope it didn't cost you too much of your time, Sandra. Ooh, Maureen says I shared a link in the group for a contest from Micador to win products. Thank you for sharing. I'll have a look. I'll just leave it like that. Okay. So in terms of blackness, the UART 400 supersedes the Meton's text because it holds the black of the acrylic paint, and it seems to hold the black of the black pencil too. So these two are the most black out of all of them. And then the second to these two, I guess, would be the pencil. The pencil and the acrylic black paint on the Meton's text paper. So I think what we can already do is we can eliminate some. We're not even going to bother trying them because we know we're not going to use them. So let's use a nice bright red pencil. And we will say that this one is a no-go. Ink does not work on this paper. Black ink does not absorb in this paper. So that one is no. Pencil feels amazing on this paper. This one is a no. So pan pastels. So we won't be using that one or that one. And they look pretty good. But I'd say the colored pencils is darker than the pan pastels. I don't know if you can see it, but I can see it. So no for the pan pastels. This is for black, remember that. Not for colors. If I was going to do a blurry background, I would always use my pan pastels because they are just the best. So, but that's if I'm using colors. So if we are trying to achieve the blackest of black as a background, then I wouldn't use the pan pastels. I'd probably just use the black paper. But, so just so you know, I still love my pan pastels, but I wouldn't use them as my black background because they still dry to a matte. I don't think I'd use any of these. I'd still, if I had the choice, I would use the Meton's text black paper. But if I had to have a second choice, I'm thinking that I'd choose this, but it all depends on how the colored pencils stick to this before I really pick this. Okay, so we will test. We'll test the pencils on these 5, not on these ones. So they are no. Okay. Cool. And maybe I could squeeze some of this in the left here. I'll cut a strip off of that. Okay, the angle of my camera is making the angle look slanted, but you guys get the idea. So let's cut a strip off of this paper because I don't want to waste too much of it. Sandra, can't you just finish it with the oil pastels? Or is it just the oil pastels are just too thick to get detail? Okay. So this is the paper we love the most so far. Okay. Now, with the Peacock Feathers, we have some nice bright greens that we really want to get at. So I'm not going to look at the reference. I'm just going to experiment with some greens. Maybe a green and a nice blue. These two I think will be good. So we'll have a play with the spring green and the cobalt turquoise. So they Prismacolor pencils. Okay, so maybe we'll just do a circle. Let's do a circle half into the part that we what can I use? Let's use our sharpener. So I'm going halfway into the part that we sprayed with the fixative and the other half at the bottom. So we'll see if you really need to use the fixative or not. So this one obviously doesn't have, we're just using the black of this paper. That is already way brighter than all the others. We found our answer, but we have to see this through. So what I'm going to do, I'll actually pick another color so we have got 3 different values. So that can be the darkest one. we'll use some of the yellow chartreuse PC1004. So these three colors, and we'll make a circle so that we can see how we feel about it. And it is Saturday, so you'll probably hear the neighbor's kids. So just ignore them. Okay, let's start with this one, with the darkest color. You can decide if you like to go from dark to light, or light to dark, so it's up to you. But since we're using sanded paper, I don't think it matters as much. I like the pigment of that already. So this is the acrylic, the black acrylic paint on the Meton's Tex sanded paper. I'm going to try and do these really fast. Then I'm coming in with my mid-tone green. Jamie's saying, do we have to use sanded paper? No, you don't. It is easier though, if you can get yourself to use sanded paper, because it's going to save you so much time. Watercolor paper is very, very time consuming. So you could do the same things, and I'd say that the black would end up being the same on the watercolor paper. Actually, maybe the black would be darker on watercolor paper. Don't know. But if you can experiment in the same way like this with the materials that you do have, then go for it. Find your answer for yourself as well. You don't have to see me show you the answer, because you may not have the materials that I have. So you'd have to try with the materials that you do have, you know. So this is not a tutorial on showing you guys how to do a three-dimensional circle. I'm doing this real quick so that I could see how well it works on this paper and how bright we're going to get it. I'm also going to use some white. Okay, now I want to blend that in with my solvent and see what happens. Here's my brush. My bun on my head keeps knocking the camera. Okay, that comes out pretty nice and bright. See, this is another reason I like using the sanded paper. If I wanted to get this level of brightness and pigment on watercolor paper, it's going to take me 3, 4, 5 layers to do that. Whereas this only took me 1. one layer. There's lots of different standard papers out there. You do not have to get the real expensive ones. So compare the prices between the UART paper and the Fisher 400 paper and the Canton Touch or Text paper. You gotta have to, and ask for sample packs. A lot of places have sample packs, so that you can try them. And a lot of people feel like they don't want to spend money on paper, but paper is one of the most important parts of the outcome of your entire drawing. So if you're willing to spend money on expensive quality art supplies, but you're not willing to spend the money on the paper, you already destroying the effect of the quality of your work, because a high quality paper is still very important. But if you're going to test it, then use samples. Don't use a full sheet of something to test. So use the samples, test it, and then purchase it when you know you've tested it and you like it. Okay, so I blended that in a bit too much and I completely lost some of the white. So let's see how we go with another layer. Hey Gareth. Oh, this isn't white, this is grey-green light. That's fine. Okay, so I'm going to blend that in, and then I actually want to do the sphere on the black Metance text paper, so that I can compare it to that, because that's the black surface I like the most. So I'll have something to compare to. I'm not sure I like how the solvent blends on top of this. I feel like I just lift it off. Instead of blending it in, it feels like it just lifts off. Which I don't like. And the light section doesn't want to stay light. Okay. So let's do the section on the Metance black paper. So this is the black surface I like the most. So let's do this circle, and then we've got something to compare to, if we like how we layer that. So I don't think I like that much how this layers on top of the acrylic paint. When I add the solvent, it seems to disappear. So let's see what happens here. So I'm going to layer in the same way as I did there, and we'll see what the difference is. Steph didn't use solvent. Okay, yeah. I don't think... Yeah, the solvent doesn't work as nice on there, so you probably don't wanna. But then, how did Steph get the texture to look so smooth? She must have burnished. Is Steph on here? I don't think so. Yeah, the solvent feels like it lifts it off in the sealed and unsealed section. So I don't know if it's just because of working on top of an acrylic surface. I mean, it's acrylic paint. It's not really made for pencils over the top. You can make it work, but I don't know if you get as nice an effect as for a surface that is made for pencils. Powder blender is made for sanded paper, but I find that I still get a brighter pigment using solvent compared to powder blender. But we do have, I'm sure we have a video sometime this month where we're going to go through using the powder blender. I need to check. Okay, let's blend that in. So I'm using the same colors and I'm blending in the same way as what I did here. Look at the difference. Wow. Green plants. Yes. Look at the difference in brightness. And I could still get that smooth variation, whereas that just felt like it was moving like mud on the surface of the acrylic paint, which I didn't like so much. Someone in their car making noise. Gareth is asking, if you spray with some kind of sealant after you finish, would it bring the vibrance up more on the black? I did find that when I sprayed my jellyfish with a final fixative, the black did seem to come out more, but the brightness of the colored pencils of the pinks on the jellyfish subsided more, so they turned more dull. So yeah. Okay, so that is the black in contrast to colored pencil layers, which I feel come out very, very bright and pigmented. So if you were to picture that like a center part of one of the feathers on the peacock, it's very, very bright in contrast to the black, which is what we want. The black isn't as dark as this one, and the colors don't mix as smoothly on the surface of that as what it does on this one. So I've got a feeling it's going to be exactly the same for the ink one. So this is black ink. So let's try. So it's already, let me close this window. So it's already not as bright in contrast to the black as what that is. I felt like this was already quite bright the minute I put it on the Metan's black paper. Okay, let's see how this blends. Ooh, I feel like that's nice and bright when we blend it. I barely have any solvent on here, but I still feel like it's moving around a lot. It's not adhering like that does. See, they all just want to mix into each other. It's not as easy to just get that gradient. Do you know what I mean? Like, seriously, my brush is pretty dry. And it's moving around too much. Okay, let's have another. So I haven't even dipped my brush in anything now. It's still very dry. It just mixes into each other. It's like paint. It seems to have the same effect as that. So I don't think how many times I make it lighter, it's still just gonna mix in like paint. It needs to stop spreading. It needs to stop as I go around. I'll show you what I mean. Like the section I just did there. So put that on there. Because that just kept spreading. Whereas here, I'll mix it in. And it's only that far you can take it. Because it just adheres. Whereas this just feels like it can keep spreading round and round and round. Does that make sense? Oh, I like this. It's like a soft orb. I'll show you again what I just did there on that paper if I do it here. It can just keep spreading around. So look how far it goes. I want it to stop. I want it to stop like that one stopped. You can't take it that much further. This one you can just keep taking further and further and further. Okay. So that was that one. Now, let's move to the one with the colored pencil. So this is still the Meton's text paper. So these two are the same papers, except this one is the black one, and this one is the white one, which we try to make black using acrylic paint, ink, pan pastel, colored pencil. So this one is a colored pencil one. The pan pastel one we decided we're not going to go ahead and use because it wasn't as black as the other ones that we are experimenting on. Yeah, I totally agree. Rather invest in paper that's going to help you, not fight you. Exactly. The paper can make it very easy for you, or it can make it very hard. So investing in paper and paying attention to what paper can do for you when you are drawing is very important. I'd say your paper choice is more important than your pencil choice. Okay, so we already have a layer of black pencil at the bottom of this. Top half has a fixative sprayed on, the bottom half does not. I don't feel like the fixative's making much of a difference. It didn't make a difference there. So blend it with solvent. I feel like the black at the bottom is really mixing through. Okay, another layer. So this is what we did with the jellyfish pretty much. So I used my sanded paper, covered everything in black pencil. Not the jellyfish though, so the jellyfish I left open. But we had a dark blue paper that we were using. We were using this paper as well. So, and the problem we had is we couldn't get the colors as bright as what we wanted to against the black background that we put down. So even though this is the paper we like using, it's not that easy to get the brightness in your colored pencil against the background that you also did in colored pencil. The background just isn't black enough, and the pigment of the pencil isn't coming up pigmented enough. But on there it does. It's weird. Okay, I'm really mixing that black in. I don't want to mix the black in. At least we can still, as we develop this, we can still make this look rounded. It doesn't spread as much like these do, where it feels like paint. At least the spreading sort of stops. It doesn't go further. So I just feel like I just keep picking up the black. So you really have to have a clean brush when you're blending the light areas. No, the black just keeps coming up from the bottom. So that doesn't work. So that just shows you, just by using different paper, the paper can make things go really, really quick. So there we've got the brightness we want, we've got the pigment that we want, and we've got the black background as black as what we wanted. Whereas with these guys, it's just not working out as easily as that one is. You could make all of them work, you could, but it's going to take you time. Okay, so moving on to this one, which is the UArt sanded paper, and this one has acrylic paint. So the top half has been sealed with a fixative and the bottom half has not. Now Stephanie did not use a solvent on this when she did her jellyfish. So Stephanie's the one that suggested this one. And she got a very, very realistic jellyfish. So in order to not use solvent, you're going to have to burnish. Pretty bright. It's very, very bright compared to those. We haven't blended it yet, but it is pretty bright. Okay. So I'm pressing pretty firmly now because I'm trying to burnish and see how much it takes to get the texture of the paper to disappear. Oops. It takes a lot. I pressed really hard there and the texture of the paper is still there. But I mean, look how bright that is. Now that is super pigmented. I think it's 335 grams, the weight of the Meton's text paper. I don't know how Stephanie didn't use solvent. You gotta take your time with layering though, if you're gonna burnish. Okay. Anyways, I'm curious to see how solvent works on this. It works very well. Okay. Something's happening there that it doesn't like. It's very blotchy. Let me zoom in for you guys. So I can really see the texture of my brush there. It's very bright, which is nice. But for some, I don't know if it's the paint at the bottom that's moving around. Oh. Okay, so solvent does not work on this. The solvent, I don't know if it's the solvent or if something underneath is moving around. But you can get a very bright result with this. The green is very, very bright. But, yeah, I don't know. Solvent does not work on this. And this is my personal opinion, but I use solvent. I do not use burnishing. I do not like using burnishing because it kills my wrists. I cannot burnish for a long time, otherwise my wrists are in pain. So I avoid burnishing, and that's why I always use solvent. So if something is not going to work with solvent for me, I'm not going to use that method. So it really is up to you. If you like a burnishing method, then I would suggest that you follow some other artists that use the burnishing method so they can teach you how to use it properly, because I do not. Okay, so that is that one. And then finally we've got the pencil one over here. So this is just black, a layer of black pencil on the UArt paper. I can see the fixative has made the black a little darker on the top because we sprayed the top half with a workable fixative but not the bottom half. So that is good. So fixative does bring the black out more. I don't see how, Luella's asking, do I think that Steph may have used the powder blender? We have to ask her, but I don't think so. I don't see how the powder blender would work on the acrylic surface. It would work fine on just on the sanded paper with pencils, definitely, but it will not, I don't see, it doesn't feel like it would work on the acrylic surface. Okay, pencils feel amazing on this paper. It grips like crazy. So the same paper, except this time you're just working with pencils on the paper. We've only applied pencils on here, whereas that one we applied the acrylic paint. So we did a layer with a black pencil first, and now I'm adding colored pencil over the top. The top half has sealed the layer. I love how the pigment shows up on this paper. Wow. Oh, cool. So Margine says that they spoke about it. Jason Morgan suggests the acrylics on the 400 grit. But is that for pastel pencils or colored pencils? Yeah, maybe I applied too thick a layer of my acrylic paint. Maybe that's the problem I'm having. The layer is just too thick. Okay, so I'm doing the top half first. The black seems to come through the bottom, even though I did seal it with a fixative. Maybe I should have sealed it with one or two more layers. So the black's coming through the bottom of the lighter colors. It's going to come through even more because we didn't seal the bottom. But using solvent on this paper feels great. And I feel like I could mix it smoothly. You just can't have black as an underlayer. So if I was just using it with normal colors, not trying to get a black background, then it would be fine. Because obviously the black comes through the bottom. The only time we use black is when we are working on dark areas. We don't use black as an underlayer to apply our layers at the top. So that's why this is just not working. Because the black just comes through the bottom. Yeah. So if I left that circle white, then this may be a different issue. So here, let's work on this white section here and see what the difference is. I cannot draw circles, so make this area dark. That feels really nice. Oh my gosh, look at that. My pencil isn't clean. Wow, look at that. So the UART 400 paper feels very, very nice with my pencils. Clean my brush. You just cannot. So let's see how they blend. You cannot have black as an underlayer on this. Oh wow. I like this paper. You'll have to try it on a complete drawing. Look at that. So because this had black underneath, it's all just turning into a grey, but this didn't have the black underneath. But if we had kept that open and just used the black pencils, the black background, it's pretty black. So it would work, but you can't apply your colors over the top of it. So that's the difference there. Okay, so let's have a bigger look at all of it now. Okay. So looking at the whole picture, yeah, it's just the angle of the camera. Okay. So if we're looking for the most black background, we've got this one, and this one. Applying, so that they're the best for having the darkest background. For applying layers of color over the surface of the black backgrounds, this one doesn't work. It's the texture, I think maybe I applied the acrylic paint too thick. I'm thinking maybe I did, and my brush strokes are coming through, and the solvent doesn't feel as good on top of it. The solvent doesn't blend it smoothly. But in terms of pigment, that one still has a very bright colored pencil pigment over the top of the black. So just getting it smooth is something you'd have to work on, and I'm thinking that it's just the way I applied the black acrylic paint, but you could make this one work. And then this one works great as well if you keep the section that you're going to be drawing free from the black colored pencil. So you probably put your outline down on the paper first, and then you can fill the background in black, and then whatever area you're working on, you use your colors, because look how bright the color is on this paper. But the minute you have black underneath, it's just going to make it turn very dark. So you cannot work with light colors over the top of it, which is normal. We knew that already. You can't just put light colored pencils on top of black pencils. So you need to just have that separate. This one, I'd say it's exactly the same issue as this one. So because we had the black colored pencil at the bottom, it just all took that color and turned gray. But if we just used the pencil directly onto the white, which you guys already know because this is like my favorite paper. So we know that this works the way we want it to. So when we blend that in, it's still going to give us a very nice bright pigment. how bright that is. So if you're going to create a black background using black pencils, you need to keep the section that you're going to be drawing on free from the black underpainting. You can't go with a color over the top, because then it will just make it look darker. Okay, so I think you guys get the idea. The quickest circle was still this one. This one was really quick. It was really pigmented, very bright, and the black background is very, very dark, which is what we want. It's not reflective. This one is reflective. This one is reflective. Yeah, so those two are quite reflective, but this one is not reflective. The rest of them are like a matte color, but because of the matte color, it dulls them down and makes them look like more like a charcoal gray than black. So my favorite one is still the Meetons Text black paper, and that I don't have to prepare anything. I can literally work straight onto the black paper. The pigment is still bright, and I can still blend with my solvents the way I want to. So that is my number one choice, is that one. If I didn't have the black paper, my next one would probably be this. So I would use my pencils as a black background, but I'll keep the section that I'm drawing on free, so that when I do draw on it, I still utilize the white in the background, so that the pigment of my colors show up just as brightly as this one does. Because this is the same paper, except this one looks gray because I got the black underneath. Okay, so I sort of hope that answers everybody's question in black surfaces. So using ink on this paper just does not work at all, but using ink on this paper makes it pretty black. But when I use the acrylic or the ink, it turns into a muddy, it turns very muddy. It doesn't blend or stop blending, it just keeps going. So unless this is the look that you're wanting. So this is experimentation. What I feel like doing, or what I like more than something else, may not be the case for you guys. So you have to try it for yourselves to figure out what works for you. I can only give you my opinion and tell you what works for me, and in this case, this is the one that works for me, but you guys have to experiment and try for yourselves. Also, keep in mind, I mainly use oil and wax-based pencils. I'm getting a lot of questions about pastel pencils, but I don't use pastel pencils as much. I use it from time to time, but otherwise I don't really use it. So in terms of getting accurate, good advice for pastels, I would suggest that you also follow Jason Morgan and ask him about it, because I cannot give you the feedback, or I cannot give you accurate information according to my experience with pastel pencils, because I don't have it. So just keep that in mind. Pan pastels, yes, that's a whole different issue, but pastel pencils, not so much. I haven't used them enough to really know the ins and out. And I know that pastel pencils, even though they're pencils, you treat them as a complete different medium, because they work completely different to colored pencils. Pastel pencils work very differently, and it's like doing a whole different medium. So it's yeah. I am going to try and start doing more things in pastel pencils from time to time, but the main things that I will be using, because that is just my medium, is colored pencils. Oil and wax-based colored pencils. I am enjoying watercolor pencils, so I'll probably get into them a bit more, but pastel pencils are not a priority pencil for what I like working with. So if you want that sort of thing, then I openly suggest that you follow other artists that can teach you that as well. And if you are only interested in pastel pencils, then I would suggest that you I wouldn't suggest that you subscribe to my channel or subscribe to my work. Just follow me on YouTube, because there's a lot of free content on there. But if you're a paid subscriber and you only want to use pastel pencils, then maybe this is not the right space for you, just because I don't use it. I hope that makes sense. But from time to time I do, and I don't want you guys to waste your money on something that you're not going to use. So I'm just letting you know, straight up. Okay, so this is the choice. So we're going to use this black paper for the Peacock tutorial, and then these methods not so much. So from now on, if I'm going to use a black surface, I'm just going to invest in using the proper black paper. I won't be doing this ever, I don't think. Because the experience that I had with the jellyfish, I did not like it. I'll show you the jellyfish again. So this is the jellyfish. So this was after I sprayed it with the final fixative. So the black is just, it's very reflective. We use pencil. We use this paper with a black pencil, except the color of this paper was like a blue. It wasn't the white one, but it was the same type of pencil. The pigment of the pencils, that turned out pretty bright. But imagine how amazing this brightness would have looked on this black paper here on the left. Then this brightness would have looked amazing. The pigment of the jellyfish would have stood out much, much more. So this is why I want to spray this with a gloss varnish, because I think that will really push the black back and bring the color of the jellyfish out even more. And yeah, so that's the black that we used, and I wish we did this experiment before the jellyfish, because then I would have used this paper and I think it would have looked even better. But I'm still happy with my jellyfish, and it's good that we got to try all of this, because if we didn't, it wouldn't have brought us to this situation. And now, at least when we do the peacock feathers, we know that we're going to have a very, very black surface, which is what we want. And that way those greens and colors of the peacock feathers are really going to stand out like crazy. Okay, so that is today's video, which is this is part 1 of the peacock feather series. This was just so that we could establish exactly how we want our black surface to be. And I've decided that I'm going to use the Metons Text black paper. If you get the Metons Touch paper black, it's the same thing. The only difference with the Text and the Touch is that the Text is 5 grams heavier than the Touch, but the surface of the paper is exactly the same. So if you can get either of them, that'd be great. And so far I haven't found, like, the regular black drawing paper which I showed you guys earlier is it's like this. It's not very black. So I wasn't even going to try it to begin with, because I just know that it's not going to work. And it doesn't have any tooth to the paper either, so it limits you to layers. Luella says she did a quick check. He did water down the black acrylic paint, and he used white color pencil on top to do a white drawing. Okay, cool. Cool. So yeah, I think if I do a white drawing, I'd still pick this paper. But if you don't have the black paper, you can use the acrylic paint black, which is pretty black. So it comes out pretty black, but I applied it too thickly. So I think if I want this to look smoother, the application of the acrylic black on the paper, I need to water it down, according to Jason Morgan. And I'm happy to take his advice, because he's got a lot of experience in this. So water the acrylic paints down, and hopefully you can eliminate any brush strokes. But it works great on the UArt 400 sanded paper, and then if you can just water it down, get it really smooth, then it should be okay to put your colored pencils over the top. Yeah, okay, I'm glad you mentioned masking fluid, Heather. Do not use masking fluid on sanded paper. It's fine to use on watercolor paper, but do not use masking fluid on sanded paper. It's like it lifts off a layer of the grit, and then you don't have the same equal amount of grit on your paper once you remove the masking fluid. You could use Frisket, but Frisket doesn't stick to it enough, so the Frisket is just going to keep coming off. So you just have to work carefully around your main subject matter if you're going to use black. But Frisket works fine on watercolor paper, masking fluid works fine on watercolor paper, but I've had a bad experience with masking fluid on sanded paper. It just tears it off. And Frisket on sanded paper just doesn't stick. It just won't stick to it. So yes, but again, those are things you guys have to experiment with first. So Maureen also points out that depending on the quality of paint and the amount of water, the acrylic can flake off in time when too much water is added. So yes, I don't have much experience in acrylic paint at all, but I'd imagine that if you water it down too much, it can't be good, so you'd have to use something that is of a high quality. And Maureen's got a bit of experience in acrylic paints, Maureen, so I think she knows the deal. Maureen says very helpful. Maureen's like, yep, if I'm doing a black background, I am buying the black paper. Diane agrees. Heather likes it too. Jamie just ordered a couple of sheets. Maureen says, thank you for doing this, very helpful. I'm glad you guys found it helpful. I did too. I got to learn a fair bit about it as well. So, okay. Cool. Thanks, guys. So I will see you guys on my Monday, your Sunday, I think. And then what are we doing? I think we are doing the official part 1 of the peacocks. Peacock feather. Let me just check my calendar. And then I was going to hop on now and finish the Color Pencil magazine drawing, but I don't want to. Monday we're starting the fantasy art drawing. That's what we're starting. And that one we're going to be using the airbrush. So I'm going to show you guys how to do the background with an airbrush. And sanded paper is great for airbrush. Airbrush will stick on it, no problem. So this ink is actually what we're going to be using on it. But I am going to be protecting my main drawing from the inks. And we're just going to use the background. So I'll try and use Frisket again. I tried it on the UArt 400 paper, which has a stronger grit than what the Meton's text paper does. So maybe it will stick a little bit better on the Meton's text paper, the Frisket. Anyways, we'll test it out. I'm hoping it does. Otherwise I'd have to just use sort of stencils to stop the airbrush ink from going on my main subject matter. But I'll be able to show you guys all of that on Monday. So thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you next time. Bye.